share some of my travel tips with you. I think these are useful whether you're cruising in a cruise port or in the disembarkation or embarkation cities. I'm a bit of an overthinker and I like to be prepared, and I love sussing out the fine details of my trip. And traveling for me is never a dull moment. I've had the strangest things happen while traveling, like ending up in the wrong country, being 24 hours late to my destination, river cruising during a 1,000 year drought, and weathering a typhoon in the South Pacific. Honestly, the worst though was losing my cell phone on the way to the airport for a solo trip to London. As I've become completely dependent on my mobile phone, I had planned my trip and saved all my documents electronically. I was really trying to reduce the paper clutter in my luggage, and I didn't want to needlessly print out a whole bunch of stuff. Luckily, because I'd spent a good amount of time researching, I'd memorized some vital information about the public transportation and the location of my hotel, which were vital to me enjoying the time abroad without all of the documents that I'd prepared. And I lost access to my navigation. But I think the hardest part was that I had no way to get cash because I'd lost my debit card, and the only credit card I kept separately was my American Express. But lucky for me, American Express had made a big push in London to make the card widely accepted. If you're new to my channel, my name is Amy and I love to travel and I love sharing my journey with you. So come along with me on my solo travel adventures as I learn to live life to the fullest after turning 50. So let's start with the disembarkation or embarkation cities, especially if you're going to a location that is new and exciting. You're most likely going to want to hang out for a few days on either end of your cruise. Some of the best advice that I can give you is to memorize the name and location of your hotel. And if you're taking public transit, make sure you memorize the lines to get there. And just as I mentioned, I once lost my cell phone before stepping on a flight from home to London. And the only way I managed my trip was because I did memorize how to get to my hotel. Once I got to my hotel, I was able to use the business center to print out local maps and transit information for the rest of my trip. I did check the underground or tube stations for printed maps of the system, and many of the employees claimed that they had them, but they were nowhere to be found. So don't count on paper maps being anywhere. Also, make sure that you can get to and from the airport or your departure point at the time that you need to. Don't just assume all the buses and public transit will be running or that it's going to be super easy to grab a taxi. I've on occasion switched hotels to be closer to public transit that ran at the time that I needed to run to get to the airport on time. So make sure you check the operating times in advance and keep in mind that weekend hours can be very different from weekday hours. On that note, be mindful of weekends and holiday hours for tourist attractions. Just do a quick Google search on the city and make sure everything doesn't just shut down on one of the days you're there. I ran into this challenge in Switzerland on Sundays. I didn't realize I needed to go to the grocery store on Saturday to get food for Sunday. The grocery store and all the local restaurants were closed, and I was left eating the leftover snacks at the bottom of my backpack. And if you're sailing, be prepared that if you're getting off the ship on a Sunday or a holiday, that there's a good chance that a lot of the things that you want to see or do may be closed. So it may be worthwhile to do a ship's shore excursion instead. Here's a tip for money. Most of the time, I don't bother having cash for the cruise ports unless there's going to be several ports with the same currency. I know it's a bit different in each location, and I know a lot of the Caribbean will take the US dollar. And I think a lot of the cruise ports in Mexico will, because every tour guide I've always had has always been begging for tips, and everyone gives them US dollars. But in Europe, a lot of the countries are going to have different currencies, and they're not going to accept anything else. This can be really tricky, so just make sure you're researching your ports in advance. And it's not necessarily worthwhile to get money in advance in the US. Just do your research, and if you have to, use a local ATM to get money because this may be cheaper than ordering it from your home bank. Also, make sure you check with your bank as to which ATM machines have the least amount of fees for you. There may actually be one that doesn't charge any fees at all. Be mindful that not all cultures or countries expect or want tips. Don't be over enthusiastic about giving a tip if it's not customary. It can be seen as rude or insulting. You need to step outside of the American mindset of tipping is always required. If you're unsure, just ask a local. And on the topic of money, make sure you keep multiple credit cards in separate locations in case you lose whatever it is you're using to hold all your cards. I like to keep an emergency backup card in my luggage, one on my person. Let's be real, usually I shove it in my bra, and I keep one in my travel purse. I learned the hard way about keeping all of my cards together because if that one item that's holding them all disappears, then that can really ruin your trip. As far as your passport goes, that's kind of up in the air as to whether you bring your original passport off the ship with you. I usually try to take my passport off the ship if I've been advised to do so. If in doubt, ask guest services. It does make me uncomfortable to be without it, but there are a lot of very high risk locations that you wouldn't want to have it on your person. I do, however, always keep several photocopies of my passport on me. I keep one in my check bag, one in my carry on, and one in my travel purse that I take off the ship all of the time. I also have a clear photo of it downloaded to my phone that doesn't need internet access to view, and I have it tagged as passport so it will come up in a search, and it won't get lost in all the digital clutter on my phone. Another thing I like to do is keep a photo of the ship's itinerary on my phone so I can refer to it when I'm in port. I also like to take a photo of any paper documents left in my cabin that may have the ship's contact information in case I have an emergency while I'm in port. And if it's only available through the Cruise Onboard app, I take a screenshot to save it to my phone. And another important thing, make sure you learn the local emergency number. In the United States, it's 911. In the United Kingdom, it's 999. You wouldn't go amiss by having a list of all the emergency numbers for all of the ports you're visiting in one place and accessible without internet. There's a great chance that you'll never need this information. On the slim possibility that you do, it could be a real lifesaver to have this information ready and at your fingertips. Also, when you're stepping off the ship at port, make sure the time on your phone or your watch matches the ship time. When scanning yourself off the ship, just ask the crew member to confirm the current ship time. You always want to be on ship time and not local time. And if they have a sign up that says what time you need to be back on the ship, just take a photo of it as you exit so you won't have that moment of panic when you can't remember. Just refer back to that photo if you need a reminder, and all is good. If you don't have cellular data while you're on port, but you have Wi-Fi on the cruise and you want to do a local walking tour on your own, just check out the route map while you're on Wi-Fi and screenshot the places of interest and the route to and from the ship. And a little known fact, if you're using Google Maps or other map programs, the average mile per hour walking speed is set to 3 miles per hour. So if the map says your destination is a 20-minute walk, it's calculated at you walking 3 miles per hour. But if you're anything like me and set to turtle speed, make sure you factor in the appropriate additional time that you'll need to make that journey. And if you're going out and relying on your phone, remember the Maps app will drain your phone quickly. Make sure you bring a fully charged battery pack or two with you. And bring at least 2 cords. I can't tell you how many times I've actually saved someone else's trip by allowing them to charge their cell phone with my battery pack. And for my last tip, there are other shore excursions available other than the ones that you book directly through the ship. But I do recommend that you make sure that you research the options that are available and you read the reviews thoroughly to filter out the fake positive reviews. Make sure they have a good cancellation policy in case your ship misses the port, and make sure it isn't some sketchy type of payment process. And as always, weigh the risk of using a private excursion versus the ship excursion. There are some places I would never use anything other than what the cruise line offered, but in very safe countries like Norway and Iceland, I have no reservation about going off on my own as a solo female traveler. But it is not something that I would attempt in Mexico, Jamaica, or any other port that I felt the least bit unsafe, or if the destination is just too difficult to get to on my own. In Norway, I did use a ship excursion for the Trollstig and Scenic Drive because there was no way that I would have been able to rent a car and make it there and back without the cruise ship leaving me in port. But in both Bergen and Geiranger, there were easily and affordable self-organized options available once we docked. I was very comfortable going off on my own and would have been hard-pressed to miss the ship. I really want to thank you for joining me today, and I had a blast sharing this information with you. It's really one of my life's passions to share knowledge about travel. And if you would like to help my channel grow, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this in the future. If you'd like to be notified every time I release a new video, just hit that notification bell and turn your notifications on. And remember, if you seek Amy, you may find her on a cruise. So have a fabulous day and happy cruising.